Adam Hunsucker is a college sports reporter for the News Star in Monroe, Louisiana. He covered the Phidarian Mathis commitment ceremony on Tuesday afternoon, and he joins us now on the Bud Light Hotline. Good morning, Adam.
Morning, Gary. How's it going?
Going well, my friend. Just like with you, it's a busy day for all of us in this business. But quite an afternoon on Tuesday. Phidarian Mathis, outstanding 6'4", 287-pound defensive lineman from Neville High School there in Monroe, held his signing ceremony at a cemetery where his friend, maybe even I'm hearing might be his cousin, Tyrell Cameron, is buried after he'd passed away following a game in 2015. So it was an emotional moment for the family for a number of reasons. You were there. Just take us back. I have to admit, I'd never seen a signing or a commitment ceremony held at a cemetery before.
Yeah, that's a new one, even for me. At the same time, I was thinking to myself while this was going, I was like, I'm intrigued, but maybe a little concerned about what a recruit could do to top the signing in the cemetery. But when you look at it, Phidarian Mathis, before he played his junior and senior year at Neville High School here in Monroe, one of the better programs in the state of Louisiana. People may remember that's where Hootie Jones came from. But before then, he actually started his career at Franklin Parish High School, a rural public school out here in Winsboro. And him and Tyrell Cameron grew up together, were friends, and were teammates for his freshman and sophomore year before Phidarian transferred to Neville. And Tyrell Cameron passed away in 2015 on opening night of the season during what appeared to be a routine collision in their season opener that ended up costing him his life. It was a national story. Some folks around your area may have heard about it. Mm-hmm. So Phidarian really just wanted to honor his friend while making his commitment, and it was definitely a scene out there for sure. You kind of got the sense going into this that Alabama was the front runner the more time went on. Just talking to him myself, he was really intrigued about the idea for playing for Carl Dunbar, Alabama's D-line coach, who's one of the best in the business, and playing for Nick Saban. And in the end, that won out. And as hard as it is to get a Louisiana kid away from LSU, Alabama was able to do that once again.
Yeah, and particularly with Northeast Louisiana, Alabama's had a lot of success in recent years. You mentioned Hootie Jones, also Cam Sims, obviously Cam Robinson, and now Phidarian Mathis. Talk about him as a player, Adam. I know you've watched him. I've watched a little bit of the video clips, mainly highlight clips. And highlight clips never look bad. That's why they're highlight clips. But he does seem to have that combination of size and strength, and also good athleticism. And with Alabama taking some hits on the defensive line in terms of graduation, you think he's a guy that could come in here even at a place like Alabama and potentially play as a freshman?
I think he could get in the rotation as a freshman for sure. But the thing about Phidarian is just his best football is still ahead of him, because he got to Neville before his junior year, and he was just kind of this big, kind of lanky, floppy thing. And he got in the weight room and changed his body a little bit, but he kept that athleticism he has. It's uncommon for a guy that's 6'4" and 290 pounds. I mean, if you watch him, he chases the ball and closes. Even when the play's going away from him, better than anybody I've seen since I've been doing this. And I think that athleticism combined with the coaching he's going to get at Alabama is going to make him a better player. Of course, the big comparison people like to make is with his high school teammate Rashard Lawrence, who Alabama was after, who signed with LSU last year. And Rashard came out of high school a more finished product, whereas Phidarian's still a little raw and has a way to go, but he definitely has that upside that, you want out of a recruit, because that's the thing out of recruiting. Sometimes when you look at some highly touted guys, they have the 4 and 5 stars, but, development-wise in high school, they're as good as they're ever going to be. But that's not the case with Phidarian. He still has a lot of room to grow.
Adam, you mentioned the relationship he's built with Carl Dunbar, and I've talked to some people here, and Coach Dunbar, as you alluded to, did a great job recruiting him. Let's talk about this Alabama-LSU dynamic, though, because Ed Orgeron, no doubt, his priority is locking down the state of Louisiana and even in Northeast Louisiana to get these guys to stay in state. But as you said, and reading your story yesterday, even though Phidarian kept people in suspense, it sounded like he'd made up his mind quite a while ago that he was coming to Alabama. Just again, talk about what a hit this is for LSU. I know I read some of the fan boards, and the fans predictably are extremely upset that this is another in-state guy that LSU lost out on to Alabama?
Well, LSU still has a chance to kind of mitigate this loss because, I mean, they're in the hunt for Marvin Wilson, who's the number one defensive tackle prospect in the country out of Texas. But it's more of a perception thing right now because if you go back to even when Les Miles was the head coach, the reason Ed Orgeron was brought in was to win these types of recruiting battles because you had the year in 2014 where, like you alluded to, you had Cam Sims, Hootie Jones, and Cam Robinson all leave Monroe and go to Alabama. So this was really what Ed was supposed to do, is kind of shore that up a little bit, and he did. His first year on the staff with him getting Rashard Lawrence, but the thing about it is they didn't just lose Phidarian, they also lost Isaiah Buggs, who a 5-star defensive end. People, Alabama fans may not realize, but he's a Ruston High product, which is just down the road from Monroe before he went to Mississippi Gulf Coast. Now, I know from covering that kid, LSU was always his dream school until it wasn't, and he's also going to be at Alabama. So while there's a long way to go today at LSU, you can still salvage this thing, and I don't think there's any reason for LSU fans to panic. But I do think that it's more than fair to question that, you look at a guy like Ed Orgeron, who got this job largely based on his recruiting ability, who has now lost 2 upper-tier in-state players to Alabama at the position where he is said to be a guru and one of the best in the business.
This news, and you may have already seen it, Adam, LSU did just get a commitment from the safety Todd Harris from there in Louisiana, so that in Alabama was also involved with him, so that's a nice pickup for LSU. Talking about Alabama's reach right now, not just into Louisiana, but you see it firsthand there in Monroe, but all over the country, it seems like right now that Alabama is the school. When they call, guys listen, regardless of whether or not they grew up a fan of another school or they might have their heart set on somewhere else. Alabama is that attention-getting school right now, and everybody, whether it's Louisiana or Texas or California, if a prospect gets recruited by the Crimson Tide, he seems to always take a second look or a strong look, whether he winds up going to Alabama or not. Is that the perception there in Louisiana that, LSU, for the most part, gets who they want, but if it's Alabama you're going up against, you always kind of hold your breath a little bit?
You hold your breath a little bit, but, I mean, it's kind of a 50-50 thing when Alabama gets involved. But, I mean, to your point, you're right. Alabama is, kind of the standard in college football right now. I mean, let's face it, for better or for worse, Alabama cares more about its football program than any other school in the country. You see that in facilities, the way and the kind of amenities you get for the players, the way they pay their coaches, basically the sheer number of coaches they have on the staff. I always go back to when Les Miles hired Kevin Steele as a defensive coordinator. They basically got him out of Alabama's film room because he was an analyst. So you hired an analyst, and, that becomes your defensive coordinator. So, I mean, there's no question about it as far as Alabama set the standard. And I think if you look at Phidarian, he's another good example of that because you're talking about a kid that, didn't have any offers until he went to Alabama's camp and impressed a lot of people, and Alabama becomes his first offer, and the next thing you know, every school in the country is on it. So that just kind of tells you the kind of reach that program has. And while, like I said earlier, it's still hard for an in-state kid to turn down LSU because, the dynamic in this state, it's LSU, then it's the step, then below them is just everybody else. You don't have to have that dual fight like you do with Alabama and Auburn. So, but at the same time, you're going to get, situations like this. And I'll be honest, I actually thought that Mathis ending up at Alabama was a bit more shocking to me than when both Cams and Hootie signed in 2014.
Wow. Wrapping up with Adam Hunsucker from the News Star in Monroe, Louisiana. You mentioned Isaiah Buggs. I want to get a thought from you on him because I tell you, I'm impressed with this kid. I've seen him here at Alabama. I had watched the tape at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Now, he is a guy who we all thought was going to wind up at LSU, but you're talking about a young man that since he came out of Ruston has added on weight and size, and he just looks like a tailor-made SEC defensive lineman to me. I think he's got a chance to start in his first year. What do you think of Isaiah Buggs' ability?
I agree too. I mean, even when Isaiah was in high school, he was a man among boys. I mean, he was just kind of one of those freakish kids. And then he goes to Mississippi Gulf Coast, and he somehow gets even bigger, which was when you think about it, because he played at about 265 in high school. So, and I definitely agree he's going to have a chance to play early. And you're right, he's the one you want coming off the bus first because that's what they're supposed to look like in the SEC. There's no doubt.
Well, Adam, I know you're busy. We appreciate you carving out a little time for us. And thanks for the insight on Mathis and Buggs. Thanks, my man.
Not a problem.